And through the drifts the snowy cliffs did send a dismal sheen, nor shapes of men nor beasts we ken, the ice was all between.
Welcome back, guys. I'm here with a deck tech today. It's a historical deck tech. It's basically my version of Papa Zvi Mowshowitz's Trinity Green deck. It's Trinity Green because 3 cards make the whole deck. One's Rothlos. It's a card for 2 mana. It produces multiple green mana. Priest of Titania, which produces multiple green mana. And Gaia's Cradle, which produces multiple green mana. Um, there's vintage players today still playing really bad versions of multiple mana cards. They call them the soul cards. Basically cards that lands that produce 2 mana, just like Soul Ring. But back in the day, there were other cheaper versions of producing multiple mana with a card. I think Rothlos Magic Online, before it was reprinted in Vintage Masters, this was about 1 ticket. Gaia's Cradle I picked up at Gen Con for about 13 bucks each, and it was a little bit on the expensive side. I had 3 Gaia's Cradles in my build. This is more of a budget build. Basically, Papa's V, he gets his name Papa from musings.com, who just puts quotes, air quotes on Papa. But for Rothlos Land Emissary, you basically have turn 1 Forest. You can put down a Land Elf if you want. It could just die. But turn 2, you do Forest, Rothlos. Turn 3, you could play a Forest if you want to. You can just actually hold that Forest in your hand instead of starting your turn with a land drop, which is what they tell all the newbies. You could play Spontaneous Generation, which is a rare from Mercadian Masques, and it just went under the radar, but it creates a 1/1 green Sapling creature token for each card in your hand. And this could be 6 tokens into play, or usually 5. And then you can put your land drop after that. Or you could just put your land drop, Rothlos could tap for 3, so you have 6 mana in your pool. You could play crazy cards like Deranged Hermit. I had 4 in my deck. Its echo cost is green 3, which is pretty expensive. But it's basically 4 2/2 green scroll tokens because it gives all scroll creatures +1/+1 while it's in play. And you think the echo cost is a little bit high to pay? Well, you could pay the echo cost with cards like Gaia's Cradle and Deranged Hermit. It creates 4 scroll tokens and itself, so it's 5 cards. Plus Rothlos makes 6, so Gaia's Cradle can make 6. You might not burn yourself for 1 or 2 damage, but that's kind of okay for the first Deranged Hermit. And if it gets kind of out of hand, like say you have like 8 creatures in play, it actually Gaia's Cradle for 8 mana isn't that bad because you can pay 5 mana for Deranged Hermit, and you can pay 3 mana for Skyshroud Poacher. Skyshroud Poacher is a card from Nemesis for 3 tap, search your library for an elf card, put it in the battlefield, shelf your library. Well, you can spend 3 mana and tap it, and you can get a 5 mana creature from your 3. This is like the early version of Stoneforge Mystic, I guess. What a wonderful card. Did I mention like my deck was extended legal? Back then, Extended was any cards from the past 6 to 8 years. I did not have Enslave Ancestry. That was a new card. I did not have Harmonize. I just had more Spontaneous Generations. But the overall shape of the deck remains the same. What makes it different from modern Elf decks is because it had a sort of a prison aspect to it. Plow Under. It's a monster of a card for casual players. It puts 2 lands on top of your owner's library. If your opponent is just I don't know, just playing is a goldfish, Plow Under is a double time walk. Because your opponent is just not going to do anything anyway, then your opponent's just drawing the top card of their deck. Plow Under gets a super double whammy with Stunted Growth from Ice Age. It's a rare. Ice Age was an enormous set. We say you could buy 3 boxes of Ice Age, and each of them had a different rare, and you still wouldn't have a playset of rare from Ice Age. Target player chooses 3 cards from their hand, any 3, and puts them on top of their library in any order he chooses. Isn't that nice? It's not discard at random. It's not choose and discard. It's your opponent gets to choose the cards, and your opponent gets to choose the order of those cards too. So it's terrible. When paired up with Plow Under, you could do a turn 2 Rothlos, turn 3 Stunted Growth, or turn 3 Plow Under. Let's imagine you going first. You have Forest go. He plays like land go. You play a forest, Ralphos go. He plays a land go. You play a forest, tap your Ruffalo's. You 5 mana, you have Plow Under. If your opponent's a goldfish, he should have no permanents in play. It looks like a permanent win. And then if your opponent like untaps, plays a land go, you could Stunted Growth 3 cards from his hand. And if he plays his second land the second time, you could Plow Under. See, you could do just a 1-2 punch, turn 2 Ruffalo's, turn 3 Plow Under, turn 4 Stunted Growth, turn 5 Plow Under. Your opponent could just concede. The 2-for-1 for Plow Under, 3-for-1 for Stunted Growth, 2-for-1 for Plow Under, and your opponent just doesn't do anything. Your opponent just isn't playing Magic. What a crazy card. Harmonize. This wasn't legal. I had this as restock for a bit. This is basically the free slot. It's 4 cards that basically was different things over the ages. You could usually just have 4 overruns in your deck. You could have 4 spontaneous generations in your deck. And what's crazy about this is, let's throw in I don't know, some Spider Silk Arbors or something like that. Like, most of this deck is standard legal. It's the Rofaloses are from Urza Block, the Priest of Titanias are from Urza Block, Spontaneous Generation is from Mercadian Masques. This wasn't in there. Sky Shroud Poachers from Nemesis, which is Mercadian Masques Block. Like I said, this could just be. Could be restock, could be Masticore, actually. This is a good card from Urza Block, which is 2 colorless. It deals 1 damage to a creature. And Ruffalo's could ramp you up to 8 to 10 mana, and you could just shotgun your opponent's creatures with Masticore. It's only 4 colorless card. It was $7 to $8, the same price of Force of Will. If you can believe it. People were just saying, you know, warning, Masticore is $7 and Force of Will is $7. Just buy, and scry. This is just a deck I came up with myself, and I was really proud of it. Just I have an original deck. Nobody's thought of this before until like 2004 or something. I was playing this and extended for years because it's mostly just Urza Masques Block cards with Ice Age Stunted Growths and Wrath Cycle overruns. They're like, you know, it's called Trinity Green, and I'm like, oh my god. So I looked it up in Randy Buehler's book. Zvi Mowshowitz was famous for telling everyone that Brainstorm was great. When it was printed in Mercadian Masques Block, Scry actually talked about Brainstorm. It doesn't follow Magic Theory because Brainstorm is 1 blue mana. It takes up a card you have to put in the graveyard, and that's you up a card. So it's kind of like 1 blue mana, do nothing. You're down 1 mana, and your net cards are +0. And Papa's Zvi Mowshowitz said, no, Brainstorm was a great card. And there's a lot of players over the years that said Brainstorm was a great card. Randy Buehler might have been the first back in the internet, before the World Wide Web and the proto-internet, when Brainstorm was good in Ice Age. But Papa Zvi got his words published in Scry, and Mercadian Masques Block saying Brainstorm was really good, guys. And Brainstorm probably was one of the best Mercadian Masques cards in that specific set. To make this juicier, it just doesn't have to be Yavimaya Hollow. This could be Pandalhaven. But, and I had, like I said, 3 Gaia's Cradles, so you could have 20 forests, 3 Gaia's Cradles, and the deck could still work. Maybe a little bit pinched on mana. But I just tried to make it work. What's weird is, like, 1 out of every, 50 games, you could get there with Elves. You could just do, turn 1 Landware Elf, turn 2 Priest of Titania, and you just don't get your package. You don't get any of your Drainage Tournament packages at all. If you do get a Drainage Tournament package, you can do turn 2 Ruffalo's, turn 3 you could do Sapling Burst. Oh, let's talk about this card. Fading Seven. It's a mechanic from Nemesis. Enters the battlefield with 7 fade counters on it, and beginning of your upkeep, remove a fade counter from it if you can't sacrifice it. So you Sapling Burst has remove a fade counter, create a green sapling creature token. Excuse me, I'm just so excited. With power and toughness equal to the number of fade counters in Sapling Burst. So it creates a token that shrinks during the upkeep, when you remove a fade counter from Sapling Burst. And when it leaves the battlefield, destroy all tokens created with Sapling Burst. They can't be regenerated. It's referring to this, not all Sapling Bursts, just this particular Sapling Burst that destroys the creatures. Although it's hard to see how the creatures could be alive, seeing if you had 0 fading counters. The creatures are supposed to be 0/0. I guess if you had some kind of Gaia's Anthem card, that would give all of your creatures saplings +1/+1. Maybe you would have saplings on board when you had 0 fading counters. What's interesting is these cards don't go away when they're at 0 fading counters. It's if you can't remove a fading counter from it, you sacrifice it. So they kind of go away at -1 fading counters. So you have a Sapling Burst that's kind of sitting around doing nothing with 0 fading counters. And I had my opponents like kept telling me, you know, put it in the graveyard already. That's not how it works. It actually survives until like -1 fading counters. I had 4 spontaneous generations from just a card shop. 4 deranged hermits actually got naturally from 2 boxes of Urza's Legacy. I had almost no like Urza's Destiny, and there's just, if you look at it, there's just not that much Urza's Destiny in my whole collection actually. Spider Silk Armor was something because goblins were a thing, and they had some Goblin Sharpshooters, which could tap and deal 1 damage to a creature or player, and if it dies, you untap Goblin Sharpshooter. So I had Spider Silk Armors in my sideboard to try to help stop the Goblin Onslaught Odyssey block metagame, which was at Gen Con and also a local tournament house. But the sideboard really could be anything. I had 2 Masticores, which is Urza's Legacy card. I had 1 from Urza's Legacy. I did not have much Urza's Legacy, but I got a second Masticore just for fun. Geez, this deck had so many turn 4 wins. Just turn 3 Sap Burst, or turn 3 Deranged Hermit, turn 4 just Overrun. And just happens to be you could take 5 tokens off of Sapling Burst. You can make 5 2/2 creatures, and then during your upkeep they would turn into 5 1/1s, and then you could overrun for a perfect 20. Well, later on, if you think about it, you could take off 4 counters off of Sapling Burst and make 4 3/3 creatures. Then during your next upkeep, they become 4 2/2s, lose Summoning Sickness, and overrun that way, and you have 4 5/5s. And that's also a perfect 20. And that's actually better because if the perfect 20 just doesn't destroy your opponent, say maybe he has a blocker, then your 2/2s you can untap and they become 4 1/1s, and then you can attack with your 4 1/1s. So if your opponent just blocks your 20 damage with a 1/1 creature and takes 19, which usually happens, then the 4 1/1s will finish him off. And if it doesn't, then you have a Sapling Burst with 0 fading counters, and you just play another Sapling Burst to finish him off. What's interesting with Sap Burst is after like sideboarding and the opponent just has tons of creature removal, you can play fun games where you just remove 1 counter from Sapling Burst and just make 1 6/6 creature. And then you attack your opponent with a 5/5 creature, and if he tears it, you can play a 4/4 creature and block. And what's interesting is you can do this as an incident. It doesn't say you have to do this as a sorcery. So if you have your 5/5 creature and you attack, your opponent can attack you, and you can just take 1 more fade counter on it, block with a 4/4. And if your opponent tears that, it's to make you say, "Oh, you can't block. You know, I won't let you block. I got a ninja or something." You can take 1 more counter off it and just make a 3/3 creature. So your opponent can't really stop you from blocking their creature when you have a Sapling Burst into play. Another thing that makes this fun is multiple Priesthood Titanias does work when Rathalos just doesn't show up. This says add green for each elf on the battlefield. That's not just elf green for that you can. Excuse me. It's not add green for each elf you control. It's green for each elf you control or your opponent controls. So during the mirror, which I actually happened to be once, I was playing against Trinity Green Mirror with Overrun, Rathalos, Priesthood Titania combo. It just ends up being like a Cloud Post deck, where your 2 Priesthood Titanias and your opponent's 2 Priesthood Titanias just make infinite mana, and it goes insane. So let's look at the updates I did for it. Like I said, 1 of every 50 games, the elves win. So my update to make this, you know, not just extended legal, but legacy legal, I would add in some Elvish Archdruids. Just because the Rathaloses just aren't that good when you draw multiple Rathaloses in your opening hand, and they get stuck in your hand. And Elvish Archdruid is basically a Rathalos because there's just so many elves in this deck. Harmonize just lets you draw the freeze package in the deck, the Plow Unders and Stunted Growths. And I had Naturalize until Kamigawa Block came out. Wear Away is just a better Naturalize. Naturalize is green 1. It's an instant destroy target artifact or enchantment. Well, there's almost no colorless sources. Like I said, this could be a Pandalhaven. So basically, a Wear Away is the same thing as a Naturalize, except you have the chance of splicing onto Arcane for green 3. I never actually spliced onto Arcane with 2 Wear Aways in opening hand against opponents' 2 artifacts or enchantments. The Wear Aways were really nice against cards like Teferi's Moat. I had that happen to me. It was blue 1, 3 colorless. Choose a color. Creatures of that color can't attack you. It's a mono green deck. So Teferi's Moat shuts this deck completely down. Like, there's no flying creatures at all. If your opponent's playing like white and blue control against Teferi's Moat, this is the only thing that will save you. I only had 1 constant miss in real life. I actually used Fogs. Fog is just 1 green. It helps against the mirror. I've had the mirror, like turn 4, overrun me with turn 2 Rafflos, turn 3, whatever, Sapling Burst, turn 4, overrun for 20. You can fog them, and then you can do your own turn 4 kill on the knockback and beat your opponent that way. Another great card I had was Smokestack. This is actually a Smokestack deck, if you can believe it. Smokestack makes you sacrifice a card during your upkeep. Also an Urza block card. You have to stack them. Either choice. You can either stack the first triggered ability and then stack the second triggered ability, or you can stack the second triggered ability and then stack the first triggered ability. So it's a little bit hard to understand when you're trying to like verbally tell your opponent what you're doing with Smokestack, which makes Magic Online really convenient for that sort of thing. But you can just sacrifice your Deranged Hermit's 4 Squirrel tokens. If your opponent does kind of Teferi's Moat you like game 1, you can have Smokestacks in your main deck, and then you can just sacrifice squirrels where your opponent's sacrificing lands until your opponent eventually has to sacrifice his Teferi Moat to let you attack for lethal. It's kind of backwards, but Smokestack actually belongs in this deck. And I'm surprised more people don't think of Smokestack in non-stacks decks. I played this deck like 1,000 games. Truly 1,000 games. This was my favorite deck ever in Magic the Gathering. And that is why Deranged Hermit is my favorite Magic the Gathering card. So I hope you liked the video. Sorry for the lengthy deck tech. I'll see you next time.
What? Wall of Ice Cream found a way to make money? That's right. You can help your favorite YouTuber, your third favorite YouTuber, by getting a month of Humble Bundle and referencing me with this reference code, or going to Hulu and buying several months of Hulu, or going to G2A and checking out that website. I have a reference link right there on the screen. So just go, and I can get a couple of bucks, and it pays for these cool things I have, like a Yeti microphone that I can't really afford. So go for it. Help your third favorite streamer.